This isn't a house, and it's definitely not a home. It's a prison. The shackles may be invisible, but they are still very real.
What did you say to me? You think you can hide from me?
No!
We all wonder why the victims of abuse just don't leave. It's simple, really. You can't leave if you don't have a place to go. Hope Pigs Global will be that place. If you need help or want to find a way to help, visit hopepigsglobal.org. The end of abuse starts here.
Hello everyone, welcome to the TheMsTexasShow. This is the show where we highlight our amazing life of our survivors of sexual assault, sex trafficking, domestic violence. And we also invite our community leaders to join here and share their community resources. We have a segment called Military Time. This is the segment where we share the stories of our veterans military during and after their services. Another segment is called Beauty for Ashes. This is the segment where we invite our pageant sisters, our actors, dancers, musicians, last but not least, our ambassadors who are survivors of those crimes and now are shining and sharing their platforms and the impact that they're making in the community. If you would like to be a guest on this show, you can email us at msusa@gmail.com. It's msusa@gmail.com. Or you can also contact us on Facebook with the same name, Miss USA Texas. Now, without further ado, we're so excited to have our special guest today here, Miss Dawn McCracken. How are you?
I'm good. So good to see you.
Same here. Welcome to the show. I know that Dawn and I met a while back, and we've both been busy with our work, and we are so glad to finally, meet here. I know we're not in the same room, but I'm so glad that we're able to connect through Zoom. So we're gonna share a little bit bio of Dawn, and we're gonna dive right in and have her tell her story. So Dawn graduated from Texas Tech with a degree in sociology and anthropology. And she married her wonderful husband, Kevin, who I just met. He is so supportive. And by the way, happy Valentine's Day to all of you. I know this show is pre-recorded, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Dawn and Kevin to give this special time to this show to raise the awareness for this important cause. So yes, and she was given the great privilege of being a stay-at-home mother and raising two wonderful daughters. And one day in August of 2018, her husband came home and told her that their neighbor, a lovely girl that happened to be the same age as one of her daughters, and had been raped. And having been neighbors for at least a decade and a half, she literally watched this darling girl grow up. And she reached out to the neighbor Sarah in a letter, and the neighbor called her in a day or two later, and in what she can call a very odd coincidence. And the ADA that declined to prosecute her case was her former sister-in-law, and her name is Mindy Montford. So, I wanted to pass the mic to you now, Dawn, to tell us the story, because this is, quite a story, and I would love for you to tell our audience about what happened.
All right, I'll do my best. Unfortunately, I think I was probably like a lot of other people where the topic of sexual assault or trafficking just didn't seem so urgent. It didn't seem so dire. I just really wasn't aware that I had no idea that it was going on in such large numbers. I had no idea that Texas itself was such a huge problem. I had never heard of the sex trafficking triangle. Um, there's a lot of things that I just didn't know, and I don't really, I don't know why I didn't know them. I wish I had known them. I wish I had seen how important this topic is, and I wish I'd been aware sooner. And so that's really what I'm trying to give other people the chance to do, is to be aware and to just be awake to this. Another message, if you will, is to reach out to your neighbors. My neighbor and I, even though we had been neighbors for a decade and a half, we were not close friends. We were really acquaintances, and we would say hello, see each other walking the dogs, see each other with the kids, but we were not very close friends. And so really when this happened, my decision to reach out to her, I kind of agonized about whether or not it would be something that she would welcome, or if it would maybe be something that would make her uncomfortable. So I really kind of pained about writing the letter, but fortunately, she was actually really grateful to get the letter and for the support. And in the years since, we have become just steadfast friends for life. And that's been a real blessing, having her as just such a close friend now, and just the family. And as far as that goes, I would say that hesitance to reach out to people when you're just not sure. It's a very difficult thing to reach out about. There's not really a casserole you can drop off for, I'm very sorry that this tragedy has happened in your family. But it was a real lesson to me that it is important to reach out to others, that you never know how important that will be for them or for me. You know, really, it turned out to be very important for me to reach out, not just to help her, but it's been a real journey in that. So for others that are listening, it's a difficult thing to reach out on, but I encourage you to, if you have someone that you know in your life who has suffered this kind of tragedy, please just know that it's probably worth taking a chance to reach out. It could just mean a lot for them and for you. So back to the story of how this happened. It was a very odd coincidence. And there ended up being a phone call that I made, and the transcript of it was released later. It was the subject of some controversy because the ADA, Mindy Montford, my former sister-in-law, the conversation that we had was bizarre. And at the time, I really didn't know if she had said these things to me on purpose or out of just being misinformed, but it was yet another layer of hurt and pain for the neighbor that had suffered the assault, and for her family to just be betrayed by the system, to have her story so mischaracterized, and the events be so mischaracterized was really, really damaging, really damaging. So through that, some of the circumstances that surrounded her her assault were just so odd and glaring that it really gave birth to what is now being called HOST, Hotels Overcoming Sex Trafficking. And part of the reason is because the place where the assault happened, she was a student at University of Texas. And ironically, the motel where this assault happened was at the University of Texas Motel 6 off of I-35. Later on, we would come to find out that this particular location is or was or is still the most common place for sexual assaults to happen in all of Travis County.
Tell us about the HOST.
So HOST is an organization that is hopefully going to use that intersection where human trafficking just so often intersects with the lodging industry. There's a huge overlap there. You have about 80% of sex trafficking or human trafficking victims that come into contact with the lodging industry. You really have an enormous opportunity to identify and help these victims of trafficking here. I know in Houston here recently, there was a new ordinance passed that requires the establishments for lodging to post a sign that gives the number for the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And it also, I believe, requires some training of the lodging employees so that they can identify and have a protocol for addressing human trafficking if they think they've encountered it. I would love to see that done across the state of Texas. Texas consistently comes in second, I believe, to California for human trafficking.
Yes.
And the fact that we're so consistently ranking second means we have got to do something. It is absolutely incumbent upon us to do something. This is not going away. It is escalating, especially with COVID. The numbers have increased, not decreased. It's just such a logical intersect and such a logical place to identify victims and to intervene and help.
Yeah, you know, it's great that you mentioned the stats. Houston, as far as the numbers are concerned, unfortunately has ranked the #1 city, and Texas has ranked the #2 state. And thank you for calling people, you know, to do this. And because everyone has to do our share, even though you and I, our passion, we can only do so much. We need to join our forces. We're calling all of you that are listening. This is a growing epidemic. And I always say that, you know, like COVID, people, there might be asymptomatic, but most of them, they have symptoms. But this is a hidden pandemic, and somebody has to do something. And our calling to you is that, you know, if we just do a little bit of our share, if you can, you know, donate, if you can volunteer, and even if it's just you share this, sharing is caring, because you never know who is listening. And like Dawn said, you know, reach out to your neighbors. You never know what they're going through. And they could be putting up a perfect smiling face to the outside world while they are going through things, terrible, dark things within, and they cannot share with you. But when you reach out, you never know. And it's a different journey. Some people might be ready to share, some not. But unless you ask them, you will not know. So yeah, so tell us more about, you know, this hotel training and what you think, like the people for some of the other cities that hasn't really carried out this ordinance. What are the hotel employees, hotel, you know, people related to these industries? What should they watch out for?
There's a lot of things to look out for. There's the victims not being able to have their own belongings, to not have control of their own belongings, to not have control of when they come and go. Obviously, if you're at a lodging establishment and you have someone who's staying there and you're seeing a lot of activity coming in and out of their room, if you're going into the rooms afterwards and there's disarray, if there's signs of trafficking, of sexual activity that's going on there on a regular basis, these are really important signs. And these people that work within the lodging industry really have an opportunity to recognize that and to intervene to help these people. There's really, you have such a great opportunity with such an overlap. I don't know why the other cities have not adopted similar standards. I know in California, there's something called the AB 260, and that requires standard training across the state for lodging industry and some other industries, but I'm talking specifically about lodging industries, hotels, motels, that type of thing. And it also requires these signs to be posted that gives a number for you to call or to text. And the texting is really important. That's been very useful with the signage. The number of calls or the responses that they're getting from the texting has really increased. That is a very important avenue to take advantage of, to provide that toll-free number for the National Human Sex Trafficking Hotline and the text number. That in itself, just having that available for people, you know, if other guests are there and for whatever reason they have a concern that it might be going on, but it doesn't rise to the level of calling 911. They're really not sure what to do. This is a very good way to give someone something to do and a way to help when they're just not sure what's happening. At least it will give someone an opportunity to, you know, perhaps save a life, to save someone from just a tragic experience. So I wish that Texas would really look at that California AB 260 and why we haven't adopted something statewide is really, it's odd. I don't understand it. I wish that the powers that be and the people that have the ability to bring forth that kind of those kinds of ordinances, those kinds of laws would put those into place in Texas. I think it would be a starting point, a very good, even if doing all of that just saves one life, it is absolutely worth it. That is someone's entire universe that is going to be different. And to not do it is really inexcusable.
So what do you think the audience can do regarding this? You know, is there something they could possibly do to help?
Well, and there is. Texas only has the legislative session every other year. I don't know how many other states do it only every other year, not very many, but that is the way it is in Texas. Fortunately, this is a year where the legislature is in. They'll be in March, I believe. And there are legislators out there that have brought up legislation similar to this before. I believe Joan Huffman, Sinfronia Thompson are a couple of names that I'm familiar with trying to bring this kind of legislation forward. If people are listening and they would like to help and they think it's important too, you reach out to your legislature. You reach out to your your state representatives, your local district attorney's office, and you just call them or you write them and you say, this is important. Texas, as the second worst for trafficking in the nation, we deserve better. This is absolutely not what we're going to stand for as a state. We're going to demand better. So please, if you do feel passionately about this and you would like to see that happen, reach out to your legislature, to your local politicians, stress to them that this is important to you, it does matter, and you want them to do this, and it's the right thing.
So yes, so we're giving out a shout out to our audience here that are listening. If this is close to your heart, make sure that you are listening to this and reach out to your local legislative and see what, write to them and contact them, call them and share about your opinions and share about your thoughts. And I think the numbers do help. And that hopefully we can get the much needed help for those who are suffering, and most importantly, so that we can raise the awareness and prevent this from happening to more people so they don't have to suffer again. Wow, this is, so important. And as you mentioned, like Texas has the legislative day every 2 years. And I know that there was the advocacy day, I believe was like in January, but this year has been so different with COVID. So we can't really actively go to the state capitol. But I know that, there are still people working on that. As far as I know that this week, there will be the Capitol Day for people. I have it on my calendar actually. Starting tomorrow, there's the Capitol Day for people to advocate for domestic violence and the family violence, and that starts tomorrow and ends on the 18th of this month. So make sure that your voice does count, and let's all do our shares so that we can make this world a better place. But yeah, so can you share with us a little bit more about the story that how this all began? The neighbor and what happened to them and what happened to them after.
I will. I'll try to not speak directly for her. It's her experience, and I want to be very respectful of that.
Sure.
But yes, this is what made me aware, and I wish I had known before. It is important. I don't want there to be another another incident like this. It was just so preventable, and the lasting damage is it's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking, and it is it's the eternal wound. It doesn't go away. This is this one day has now changed not just her universe, but the universe of her family, of those that love her, of the really of the community. It's this is not what any of us want for our own children. And if we are not willing to step forward and fight for other people's children and for other people, we really cannot expect our own to be safe. When this happened, it was very alarming. The circumstances, again, the fact that she was a student at the University of Texas, and the motel where this happened, ironically, the University of Texas Motel 6 off of I-35, and it still bears that name. It still has the name, the University of Texas Motel 6. Why? I cannot fathom why the University of Texas has not demanded that their name be taken off of that when they know that at least one student, and she was a student at the time that this happened, had been a student there for 3.5 years. And when I went on the website one day on University of Texas, I found a link there where it had recommended hotels, and I don't know how they chose to recommend, if it was just a matter of distance or whatever, and this was just a month or two ago, and the name of that motel was still on their website as a recommended place to stay. It's outrageous, absolutely outrageous. So to that, anyone else who feels like that's outrageous, say so. It's something that's very addressable. Why it's still on the website as a recommended place to stay, can't say. Why it still says the University of Texas Motel 6 is pretty disgraceful for the University of Texas. I hope they change that quickly. When you have a university and you have these people, these students who are there, you really do have an obligation to their safety, especially on something that is so foreseeable. This Motel 6 had been an ongoing problem. The most reported place for sexual assault in the entire city. It may still be. And that was over a 3-year period of time where it ranked the most, the place where it had the most sexual assaults for all of Travis County. And why that's allowed to happen when you have these lodging establishments that are repeatedly coming up as places where people are being assaulted or trafficked. That's a foreseeable danger. That's a foreseeable place for law enforcement to intervene, for the THLA, the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association, to intervene. They have the ability to do more, and they should absolutely do more. I've talked with a lot of people who work in this area over the past 2.5 years, and people have been so gracious. I'm really taken aback by how gracious people have been. People that would maybe seem like they would not be as available. They are so much more available than you think they are. It's just a matter of reaching out and saying, this is important. What can we do? I'm really grateful for the people that I've encountered, including you, Eileen.
Thank you.
Again, amazed by how really available people are to hear this and how much they really do care when you're willing to share it and to help with a solution. That's what Host became for me, was just how can I help in a pocket, in a segment, because really it is it's a huge problem that to address it on a macro level, especially as just a housewife with a sociology and anthropology degree from 20-something years ago. I was really frustrated with how I could be of use, how I could be of service, how I could make a difference. And that was where the organization was birthed, if you will. The idea just from the experience of my neighbor having at a lodging establishment. It was so alarming that the surveillance footage from that evening was lost. And I don't know how common that is, but there was really no, people people seem to be pretty unalarmed that the surveillance video went missing. It's not like people at places like that are recording on a VCR anymore. It's done digitally. It's pretty hard to lose that. And law enforcement should have been just better equipped. They should have been more invested. They should have cared more. They should have done more. It was really just a failure every step of the way, and every single failure along every step of the way was another injury, was another level of harm done to the victim. At every point where they fail her, it's another injury. And it's preventable, at least in some small measure, it's preventable. And that is why HOST was born, Hotels Overcoming Sex Trafficking. And it is a real opportunity for hotels, for the lodging industry, to help to overcome sex trafficking. It's got to be a collective effort. It has to be important to people across the board. I don't understand the hesitance for lodging places to provide the human trafficking hotline number and the texting number, or the hesitance to provide the training. But whatever the objection is to posting the numbers or to having the training, it is definitely offset by the potential good it can do. And I just don't understand how anyone could see it differently. I'm certainly very passionate about it, and I hope that people will see the opportunity here with the lodging industry to help.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in the beginning about 80% of the victim of sexual assault, sex trafficking actually took place in hotels, motels, and those lodgings. So this is really like, for those who doesn't know, that human trafficking is a huge industry. To give you an idea, it's $150 billion. And this is why we're focusing on this, and to bring the awareness, so hopefully we can put a stop to this. Now, I'm curious that you mentioned that it's still on the University of Texas website, the Motel 6.
Yes.
And there is actually, this is in Travis County, so I'm not familiar, but
Yeah.
I'm here in Houston in Harris County. I know that there's this Title IX committee. I don't believe it's a task force, but I was wondering if there might be a Title IX committee, task force, something like that, because it is mandatory for the students when they get on the campus to get trained about sexual assault awareness. And there were actually, faculty members from each entities that are designated to be in charge. Is there a certain entity that is already in existence in Travis County or at University of Texas that you could, or people could reach out to as well?
Absolutely. Yes, Title IX would be the appropriate office at UT to address this, and I believe they are aware of it. To this day, I'm not aware that they've done anything about it. I don't know who follows up on that to make sure that they respond in a way that is effective and that demonstrates that they are committed to the safety of their students. But they could certainly do better. I hope they'll take this opportunity to do better. That's what all of this is about, is just for everyone to take the opportunity to do better in whatever capacity. they have available to them. I hope that University of Texas, I hope the other universities will really take a look at what they can do to make their students safer, to make sure that they are providing a safe environment and really giving students resources that they need if this does happen to them. That's another issue, that there really isn't a protocol, a standard for how to care for a student if this does happen, if they're sexually assaulted on campus, and it's not, or if it's not on campus, if it's just a student and they're sexually assaulted not on campus, but they're still in classes and everything. You can see there's an obvious need for a Title IX, or maybe even something within Title IX specifically for students who have been the victim of a sexual assault, because as a group, that is the group most at risk, is that age group. Really, you have students, especially in their freshman year, who that is when you're most at risk to have a sexual assault happen. These universities have got to be set up to address it if it happens, to take care of their students in the aftermath. How do they go about informing the professors that this has happened? They might need to drop classes. They might need to drop out of school for a while. They might need to re-enter school at some point. They may need to put their grades on hold. There's a lot of ways that the universities could be helping students that that they aren't really taking advantage of yet. But again, this is all about creating the opportunity and the space for some collaboration, and to do that better going forward.
Wow. So, this is wonderful that Host was born under, despite of the bad circumstances, but what you're doing, because like we talked about what the percentage of those crimes take place and the amount in dollars that take place. This is certainly something serious. So for those audience that are listening, how can they help you?
Well, again, it's contacting your legislature, your politicians. And if you are a student at a university, I think it's a good time to ask before you or someone you love is victimized in this way, to ask, hey, what's the protocol here? How do you respond if you do have a student that is sexually assaulted while they're a student there? What is the protocol? How do you help them? I know another topic that has come up is, some students, they have a lot of student loans that they've taken out over a period of time to go to school. And when you have your life interrupted by a tragic event like this, it can be very difficult to stay at the university, to stay engaged with your grades and stay on the track that you were on previously. It's just so life-altering on every level, and to not have the help there from the university is, well, it's really not excusable. These universities are spending so much money on other programs, their football and their sports programs and stuff. This is not, this isn't even like almost as important. It is more important. This is absolutely more important. It should be garnering a lot more of the efforts, a lot more of the funding, a lot more of the attention than a basketball team. So if you're at a university and you're a student or a parent there, I would call and ask, what is the protocol? Do you have a protocol? Do you have someone in place to help a student? Do you have someone in place to help them, manage the finances of it? How do you, you can imagine if this happens and you're having to take a break from your education because you're struggling. You're trying to get yourself back together. You can't do it alone. To have to call all of your professors and explain what happened, why you're withdrawing, why you need your grades put on hold. That shouldn't be something that falls on a student who's already been a victim of a terrible crime. It's a very addressable. It's something that has a pretty, I wouldn't say an easy solution, but it has a pretty identifiable solution, a doable solution. And again, it far more important than a lot of the other things that the universities are really focusing on.
Yeah, that is true. Because, a lot of the times people tend to focus on, obviously they went there for school, but there are other safety. Just like, when you buy a house, I know that when I buy the house, I need to check if it's in flood zone, even though that you live in the greater Houston area that, after the hurricane, pretty much everywhere is the flood zone. But we also like check, the crime records and the area. I think it's very important to do the due diligence for the students themselves, because it's about you as well as their parents when you're looking into which university, because they are going to spend years over there. It's not like just overnight this happened and they can flee. And just like Don said, the consequence are the student loan. So when this happened, they're gonna have further damage in that as well. But it's interesting that you mentioned about the finance part. And I believe that in the past, when I was working with different groups, and we have kind of detected that one of the reasons for the victims when it comes to sex trafficking is for the pimp to, one of the many reasons they coerce them into doing the service for their purpose, and that's part of the definition of human trafficking. But part of it is because they owe a debt to a certain party. In this case will be the pimp, and the pimp will force them to perform the sex service in order to pay back the debt. So, be very careful of those signs. And can you tell us about those signs? Like, in addition to those, how can a student, if they God forbid, and if they have never experienced that before and they're hearing this for the first time, what are the signs for them to watch out for so that they don't fall into victim themselves?
Well, anyone that's trying to isolate you in any way, there's usually a grooming period where they'll escalate. They won't start off with something that's alarming, but they'll gradually build up to it. It's just something to be aware of, and to make universities aware of, because again, as a group, that is the most at-risk group right there, is that age group. And to really not provide some kind of outreach for that is again a missed opportunity. And that's really where this is coming from, is just to seize the opportunities where they lie to help, because there are so many in so many different ways that if you're just recognizing even a few of those, you're going to help. And again, if you are at a university, if you're a parent, I think really just calling and asking the question itself is a good idea, because it lets the university know this is important. Do we have a protocol for this? And students and parents are calling and saying this is important. If we don't have a strategy, we need to develop one, and we need to have a position that addresses that. So, hopefully a bunch of universities will be getting phone calls from students and parents just asking the question, how are you going to address this if it happens? What's the protocol? It's important to me that you have one. Obviously, if there were a lot of parents calling up and saying, this is important to me, or students saying this, it would change. It would change quickly, and it would change for the better.
Yes, that's true. Again, everyone, we need to take our own actions and make this world a better place just by doing it one little bit at a time and save one person at a time. Now, I know you're very humble that in your bio, and I know when I did the introduction, I didn't read it through, and I read it again. I'm like, I didn't see anything about the task force. And I know when we had a brief conversation prior to our interview, you had mentioned about your affiliation with the task force. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with the task force.
I would love to. Fortunately, down here in Corpus Christi, we have a wonderful, wonderful state representative, Todd Hunter, who has been aware of human trafficking and fighting it for longer than I have been aware of it. I came in late in the game. He's been very vocal and very focused on fighting this for a long time. Again, so fortunate to have him down here. Thank you, Todd Hunter. We know him just as a family friend. Corpus is, a big, small town, if you will. It's not super small, but everyone kind of tends to know each other. So I've known Representative Hunter and his family for a long time. And when this happened, I did go visit his office, and he just was so encouraging and so supportive. And really part of the conversation with him is really what gave birth to this. Just him really encouraging me to look for a way that I could address it. And this is partly from his encouragement. Again, he has a really strong commitment to it. He's been working with community members down here for much longer than I've been aware of it. And he very graciously invited me to be on the trafficking task force, and I am new and eager to be helpful. So I'm I'm looking for opportunities to be helpful, and really grateful that Representative Hunter has been so encouraging. And like I said, been battling this long before it was even on my radar. I wish we had more Todd Hunters, and I'm really grateful that he gave me the opportunity to be on his human trafficking task force, and that he's just been so personally supportive. Again, I wish everyone had a Todd Hunter somewhere in their midst. And perhaps if you look around, there are those people in your community. You might be surprised. Again, I've known him and his family for years, and ironically, I find myself on his task force and really looking for ways to help together with him. And for people that are listening or watching, you might have a really wonderful representative, a really wonderful senator at your disposal that may be far more available than you imagine. As I found Todd Hunter to be far more available and far more invested than I anticipated, and super grateful for it. So look for those people. They are out there. It is a matter of, we've got to connect. We have to reach out and find each other. It's the only thing that makes us stronger. just like what you're doing. I know the way I came across you again was from, it's this whole network of people that I've run across, and then they give me another name. I reach out. Again, that's what happened with Vicky. Thankfully, she's just was so gracious to take her time with me and to introduce the two of us. And this is yet another opportunity for me to learn from you and to collaborate with Vicky and other people like her who are doing so much and have been doing this for so much longer than I have been doing it. I still have a lot to learn. I mean, I've only really been engaged in this way for a relatively short period of time. But there are those people out there. If we find each other, we really have to raise our flags and say, I'm over here. This is really important to me, and connect, and it will make us so much stronger. It's been, yeah, it's been wonderful. And it is people like you, people like Vicky, all of the people that I've met along the way that have passed along other names, that have shared their resources, that have shared their experiences with me. These are gifts. These are gifts from people when they're willing to share their stories and to share their knowledge and their resources with you. It's again, I've found people to be incredibly gracious, receptive, helpful. Reaching out and finding those people has been surprising in a pleasant way, which this can be a very sad journey. It can be a very dark journey. But it is finding people like you, people like Vicky, and so many others along the way that are real bright spots, that are real, that really give you hope and make you feel like it's something you can change and something you can contribute to. Again, I have been a stay-at-home mother. I haven't, I know when you asked me for my bio, I was I was a little oh gosh, trepidatious, because I don't have one. I couldn't even find a picture of me by myself. But it does, and you were so sweet when I called you and said, oh gosh, I don't have a bio. I've been a stay-at-home mother, and you know, I can tell you how to get dog pee out of a rug, but beyond that, I don't know how useful I am. Well, I'm finding out I'm a lot more useful than I thought I was going to be. And it's really just a matter of wanting to be that useful. I didn't realize that that was that it was a choice, that I could just choose to be more useful than I was. Again, no background for this, nothing other than a lot of drive and yeah, just a lot of drive and heart for it.
Well, this is beautiful, and thank you so much, Dawn. It is my true honor, to get to know you as well. I know that, and thank you, Vicky, and I'm sure you'll be listening. And we'll be putting Vicky's part 1 and part 2, and in the link down below as well. But like you said, it is people like yourself who has the passion, and we can hear when you talk the passion about it. And that's what keeps us going. And, the word is big, but it's also small. And that, we kind of like all interconnected one way to another. And just like, I know that when we do the right work, good things will happen to us. Not that we want to, but how many great people like yourself, like reaching out to say, hey, let's do this together. This is what we need, because it takes a whole community. This is a community problem. And for those who are listening, if you're thinking like, okay, this might just happen to girls, no, you're wrong. Boys can be victims as well. And for those you think like, well, I know that Dawn talked talked about this is happening locally, so at least you know about that. But a lot of the people, including myself, when we first got into that, we think this, I kind of like mix this with the definition of smuggling. So I would think like it's a container of people full of foreigners that, you know, that they look from not American. I know American is a melting pot, but you know, they can be from different countries. But no, you're wrong. This is happening in our backyard. We all have to take this action. And if everyone, just like you and I, and you know, Dawn here, Vicky there, and everyone, and connected and join our forces. And I wanted to emphasize, Dawn, you're not useless. You know, you see how like great work that you have been doing in this wonderful organization, Host, that you know, was born because of your great effort, and you're on the task force, and it's by choice. You could very well choose to just stay at home, say, hey, you know, this really doesn't directly have anything to do with me. I can choose not to, you know, get involved. And to be honest, you know, we work with a lot of people, but it's not, I really believe people all have a good heart, but you just need to connect with them in different way of connecting, whether, you know, with your talent, like Dawn, she has the connection with, you know, thank you, State Representative Tom Hunter, for your great work that you're doing. Connect with your, you know, people that you already have the contact with, and utilize your skills. Doesn't matter what it is. You know, if you have time, donate the time. You have money, donate the money. And you know, like Dawn said, it's a lot of driving. And before the COVID, you know, we were driving a lot. Like, you know, there's this committee, that coalition, this board, that, and like it's a lot of driving. But every, like, you know, every organization are working their own due diligence, and they all work together in order to fight this. So we really need your help. But this is wonderful what you're doing, Dawn. I really love what you're doing. You know, for takeaway, what would you like our audience to take away from our interview today?
I would like for them to take away that among the lodging places, it's very prevalent to take an interest, to reach out to your community and find out what they're doing, and find the other people around you that are invested in this. They are there, and you'll find people incredibly gracious and willing to help along the way, much more so than I anticipated. It's that part has been a lovely surprise. Again, it can be a very hard and sad journey, but the people that I have met along the way, I'm 50 years old, and in the past 2 years, I have truly met the finest people I have ever met in my entire life. This has been something that's been very trying and very difficult at times, but I feel incredibly blessed, so incredibly blessed to have met the people that I've met. They are the finest people I have met in my entire life. I consider it an enormous privilege to have them in my circle, and the price that was paid to meet them was absolutely worth it. And for Host going forward, I will tell you, we will be creating a website very shortly. It will be up. We're trying to figure out how to do that, if we can do it electronically or in person, all this kind of stuff. And ultimately, we would like to have an app created so that when you're looking at the app, it would be the picture of the state, and you could see if you're looking to stay someplace, is this a place that's high risk? And you can choose to stay there or not to stay there. It would also be a way of identifying lodging places that are high risk, and you know, they can improve their record and not be identified as high risk by our organization. And hopefully that will incentivize lodging places to have a better record, to do better by the communities that they're in. They are making a living in these communities, and they owe them a level of responsibility and protection for the community that they are making a living in.
Wow,
And
this
so
is
I intend to hold them accountable.
This is wonderful. Yeah, I'm excited, for the website and the app. And I'm sure that we would love to bring you back on board to give us updates about the website and apps and, maybe show us our users how to use that. And because I think this is really important. I know that when I go to a place, a strange place that I'm not familiar, again, especially as a woman, and younger the youth, whether boy or girl, it's very important to check the safety of the area. So I think that will be very helpful, and we would love to bring you back on board again.
Anytime, Eileen. You're wonderful. And again, I count you among the wonderful people that I've had the opportunity to meet. So thank you. That's always the bright spot of this.
Well, thank you so much as well, Dawn, for what you do. Like I said, in the earlier part of this show, today is Valentine's Day, and happy Valentine's Day again. But we have chosen, just like you said, this is a choice. We have chosen to spend this day to do this important cause because of our belief and our passion. And we really call you to join our forces together. I know that January only comes once a year, the Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Sexual Assault Awareness Month comes once a year in April. But our hashtag is 365 because this doesn't just end, because the month ends. And we call that all of you to join our forces together to end this terrible crime. And I wanted to also mention that Dawn has mentioned, to get to know each other, to connect with the people. And we have a wonderful network that is set up called Survivors Against Violence Everywhere, which we will be putting in the content section below. This is another network that not just survivors, not just victims, and all the supporters of those survivors, victims who might, need support themselves, but also a great network for people to connect, because there's also, law enforcement, there's philanthropists, there's, task force members, and there's also people who are counselors and medical professionals. And we can all join our forces together. This is a safe platform that we can join together so that we can end this crime and get them on the safe journey of hope and healing. But thank you again, Dawn, so much for your time. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.
A wonderful Valentine's Day present to me. So thank you. It was the best Valentine's Day present ever to spend my time with you.
Oh
Much
my God.
appreciated.
Same here. Happy Valentine's Day. I couldn't have, asked for more. This is
Same.
very special.
Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we will all be stronger together, reach out, we'll all find each other. And I do find every time we just reach out and grab that other hand, we are so much stronger.
Absolutely. We will for sure to bring you back on board again. Well, thank you all for tuning in. And this is the Miss Texas Show. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and share. Remember, you never know who is listening, but share this message. Sharing is caring, and this can possibly help people. Thank you. We love you all.